Hey everybody, welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is February 10th, 2019. Oh my goodness, time flies. It's insane. But anyway, very happy to be here and very happy to have our amazing moderator, Irene, and our amazing panelists who you're going to get to meet in just a quick second. So today's topic is innovation in education. So very excited about this topic. So we're going to have the panelists introduce themselves, starting from left to right. So we're going to start first with Lara.
Hi, I'm Lara Kohler. I'm a teacher candidate in secondary science at Loyola University, Maryland.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Tweet and Talk. So glad to have you here. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Kenny. Oh, you might be muted, Kenny.
All right, I'm trying.
Okay, you were good just a second ago.
Okay, I'm good now.
Yes, sir.
I am Kenneth Williams. I teach 7th grade math in Prince George's County. I've been teaching for now almost 12 years.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Tweet and Talk, and that is awesome. We're definitely going to have to connect later because we're in the same district. So fantastic. All right. So next up, we have Kaylee.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Scott. I'm a 2nd grade minor teacher in Washington County.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Kaylee. Great to have you here. All right, we're going to skip over Irene and come back to her. But next up, we have Heather. Heather, if you could please introduce yourself briefly.
1 second.
Okay, you're good. You're unmuted and ready to rock.
All right, so I'm Heather, and I'm currently a grad student in the Educational Technology program at Loyola University, Maryland, and I'm based in Baltimore, and I've been teaching for 5 years.
Awesome. Well, welcome to EduMatch. So glad to have you here. Wonderful, wonderful. Next up, we have Charles.
Hello, my name is Charles Pierce, and I am a teacher, middle school English language arts teacher in Baltimore City, Maryland, and also a graduate student in the curriculum and instruction, digital technology, something at Loyola right now.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, Charles. So happy to have you here. So thank you for joining us. And last but not least, rounding it out for the panelists is Doc Amy. You might be muted.
You think I hadn't done this a bunch of times already. I'm Dr. Amy Hager on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I'm also an Edu business coach. I work with fellow educators who are looking to become entrepreneurs using their skill set.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. Great to have you here. So thank you for joining us again on EduMatch. All right. And last and certainly not least, we have our phenomenal moderator. Y'all know her. Y'all love her. So welcome back, Irene.
Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Bal. I am a lecturer in educational technology at Loyola University, Maryland in Baltimore. And I'm very happy tonight. I have a couple of my students and Doc Amy on board tonight to talk innovation and deeper learning in EDU. So we're going to kick it off with our first question. Why is deeper learning needed in K-12 schools?
Well, can I go?
Yes.
Deeper learning is going to be needed for students, I think, more so to begin to prepare them in order to move students into why and how things apply to them and the world around them, as well as getting them to understand the impact of their actions or inactions as they go through the educational process, and as we work to create more critical thinkers.
I think to piggyback off of what Charles said, deeper learning is so critical with students in today's times because everything is turning so digital and it's requiring them to make a lot more connections to their learning to make it more relevant and meaningful. Whereas, you know, years and years ago, they didn't really need as much as those skill sets of what we need to teach now with the critical and creative thinking and how to collaborate and so on and so forth.
I think too, just very concretely, that deeper learning also teaches skills. The it teaches students the skills that you would really want someone to have if you were hiring them. And so these are skills that allow them to solve problems with appropriate and timely solutions, how to work collaboratively, how to use good communication skills. And they also would be, hopefully, after deeper learning, more able to come up with their own original ideas and solutions.
I definitely agree with what you were saying. And, you know, piggybacking off of that, it's something that the students need in order to be successful in the real world, whether it's those higher level thinking skills or knowing how to integrate technology in a variety of ways. Deeper learning allows for the students to take what they've learned in that way and then eventually apply it to their careers or whatever they're going to do in their future.
For me, when I think of the term deeper learning, I think of students taking more ownership, ownership of their learning, ownership of the product that they produce related to their learning. So when I think of deeper learning, I'm thinking of ownership, student ownership.
Awesome. And I wanted to bring, going off grid, Sarah knows I like to go off grid. I really like, some of you all said like the hiring skills and the ownership of learning. And Dr. Amy, you probably see this a lot with the entrepreneurship piece, where you really have to take ownership of and kind of guide yourself in what you're doing. And just thinking about the roles that are currently even in education, we always talk about, oh, we're training students for jobs that aren't even there. And I saw, I forget who it was on Twitter, said, you know, I'm in a job right now that wasn't here 20 years ago when I was in school. So in training people in jobs that are no longer here, how can we also boost these skills, these deeper learning skills and these connections, collaboration, communication, like Haley said, and maybe Dr. Amy, I'll push it on to you first, for this entrepreneurship idea and where jobs are going in the future. Oh, I think she's having trouble hearing. Does anyone else have any comments while we get her back on track?
I guess I was thinking about the question. I think deeper learning, and I realized that we're talking about the development of job skills, but I think that as society has become, as we as a society have become more and more reliant on social media, deeper learning also puts our young people in place that they have to become media literate and understanding that and I just heard it actually on a podcast with Preet Bharara, and they were talking about how during the television generation, you had to realize that some things were made for television. We have to now realize that some information is made for social media, and a lot of young people aren't there yet. They think that everything that they see is real. With deeper learning, they'll be better able, it'll be more ingrained to critically think about the how, the why, and to whom this audience, who is this presented for, and what is the ultimate reason. Things that we typically take for granted or don't do, or have to make a concentrated effort to do in our normal interactions.
That's well said, Charles. I wanted to bring in some comments from YouTube. Marvia Davidson said, we also live in a world now where you have to constantly be learning and applying what you're learning in your work and your life because it impacts companies and how they work and the tools they make. And Marvia, I'm totally on board with that. I completely agree. And Michelle Wooten said, deeper learning is necessary because so much surface learning is simply available on the internet, and students have to be able to use what they learn. And that's another really great point. And so with those points, we're going to move to question 2, or question 3, I guess. How can educators integrate innovative technology into their learning environments?
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. I think we have to get really creative. I feel like digital equality, that's almost kind of like the new separate but equal. I mean, really, we say, okay, we can give paper and pencil assignments, but it's really not at the rigor and the I guess rigor, that would be lack of a better word, that kids who have access to computers and internet at home all the time versus kids who can just kind of hop on at school or even using a smartphone. Like, it's not the same as having, a computer, a desktop, unlimited internet access. So I think we have to kind of be creative and kind of meet kids where they are in regards to what kind of technology they have, which can kind of be, we kind of have to know, like, okay, if they have access to social media, there are ways that we can incorporate education. It doesn't necessarily have to be access to databases and Word and things like that to do like actual homework assignments. Sometimes we have to find other ways to get kids to use technology for education, just because not everybody has the same thing. So,
but I think we have to remember to like make sure that whatever innovative technologies we're using, like, they're purposeful. Like, all of my students in my second grade class have their one-to-one, so they all have their own iPad. And while yes, it would be great to just shoot out everything on their iPad, what's like the sole purpose behind it? And I really like what you said about the digital equity type of thing, because that kind of brings it full circle, where yes, some of us have availability with these technologies, but are we really using them for to help students develop those critical and creative skills that they need?
Yeah, I think that's really important that we're purposeful about it. I think using technology and integrating, like, those are our buzzwords right now. It sounds really great, but are we really teaching teachers how to do it properly? And then we get into boundary issues of like, yeah, I want to have a school Instagram or a classroom Instagram, but then are we really teaching especially our younger teachers, how to be digitally responsible and how to use those things? Teachers are getting caught up all the time, starting innocently enough, but we need to be purposeful how we're doing it, how we're using it, and teaching teachers how to be safe with it all. I mean, I think everyone has good intentions, but like I said, it's great to have an Instagram, but what's it for? Just to say you have one? So, good point.
I agree with both of you. But I am inclined to think that with deeper using technology means that if I, as the educator, model for the young person or model for my learners what they're going to do once I find the piece, that it becomes purposeful. It's trying to make things purposeful in a classroom. Coming from the district with which I'm in, there is a digital divide. And so every day that I have access to technology, then I have to figure out that they're not just on there doing what they want to do. So it has to be purposeful instruction rather than you go over here and do this. That means my having to research the platforms I want to use, by creating the lesson plans and presenting the lesson using those platforms, and how and whether I explain it to them or not at that point, how does this benefit me? I think that obviously I am in agreement with using technologies for technology's sake is not the answer. But I think that if you know this is what this is for example, my students have an assignment due in the coming days, and they have horrible handwriting. Some of them it's just, we can't do this. So we've gone back and because I made sure they're in Google Classroom, they understand the purpose. And I know that I'm also teaching them physical skills that they're going to need later on, but we're beginning to talk about using Google Classroom more purposefully than we have been at the beginning of the term when we really didn't need it. That's where I go in that general direction.
Oh, I really want to jump in here and marry some of these ideas. So, Charles, I like what you said about modeling, and I want to pull in Kaylee's idea or speaking point on purposeful. And I think with modeling, it needs to be purposeful modeling, and not just saying, well, I'm modeling how to use it, but bringing in Doc Amy's idea in that PD as well as with students, and purposely stating that you're modeling and why you're modeling and what, the reasons behind, why you're doing things in a certain way with the students, as well as in that PD situation, like Amy said, and just kind of marrying those two. Other thoughts?
I agree with everyone that has spoken. One of the items that I think that I try to add to my use of technology is also feedback, in terms of my students having an opportunity to practice a new skill, but then giving them actionable feedback on the work that they've given. I am at a new school. This is my first year at the school, and we are a one-to-one school. My previous school was not one-to-one. So my use of technology, I see, is very different here at my new school than my previous school. We also use, like Edwin, Google Classroom, but my expectation is a lot higher for my students at my present school than my previous one because of the lack of access. But in having that access, I still need my students to understand that we need to use technology effectively to get our points across or to show what it is that we've learned in the best way possible.
I completely agree, Kenny. And I want to jump to Mary Beth on Twitter, who says, answer this question: with deeper learning helps students understand real world situations and make personal connections to the content to help, and this minimizes the memorize and regurgitate aspect of learning. And I think about that a lot in higher ed and in K-12 and training, or not training, I hate the word training, but in working with educators and current teachers in growing their skills. And so with that, we're going to jump to question number 4. Name an innovative educator, innovative idea, innovative tech tool, or an innovative school that inspires you the most, and include why you're inspired. Kind of moving away from this memorize and regurgitate, but actually connecting to others to be able to grow your learning and your students' abilities.
I'll give a shameless.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I'll give a shameless plug. I think one of the technologies that I'm trying, and I went to the blog Ditch That Textbook, and Matt Miller explained it in such a way as it really drew me in to trying to use this in my class. Definitely.
Kenny, we're having some technical like sound issues. We're going to move over to Doc Amy and let your sound to get together.
Okay, just in regards to innovation, like I think that we need to start, tech aside, start asking our teachers more to help solve some questions and some problems, especially with technology. And I understand where it's coming from, where they bring whoever the representative from the tech company or the software company or whatever the new thing is, they come in, and it's clearly haven't been in a classroom for a really long time. They're corporate people, they're corporate trainers. And I think to myself, you have a whole school full of master's degrees. You didn't even think to ask us. Like, ask us. we are more powerful than you think, and we can problem solve in the same way that children have been taught to true, false, all of the above, just multiple choice. That's kind of how teachers, we lose that problem solving ability because no one's asking us. So I think especially with this, because I'm kind of in that in-between generation where we had internet my junior year, like AOL Instant Messenger was around, but like I still know how to use like a regular telephone. Like I really had the best of both worlds. And to see how it has changed and all the great things that we can do. The fact that we are having this conversation right now is huge. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, teachers, when I was in high school, would not have this opportunity for us to really link together and almost, for lack of a better word, like crowdsource our knowledge and really come up with some interesting things that we can do with these kids. So I think the technology is definitely going to let us, all of us collectively, step our game up, because my school district didn't tell me about you guys. I came out and found you. Like we are reaching out and getting opportunities that our regular school district may not give us, just as a common lowly classroom teacher, and that we're able to come together and have an expert conversation about some stuff that's really important to us and hopefully get some solutions to some problems.
So Doc Amy, I completely agree. I hate when people walk in and assume that the room knows nothing. And that most educators, a lot of educators have that master's degree. Walking in and getting, survey, knowing the learner and knowing who you're kind of presenting to with different tech tools and different strategies is really important. I think as someone who's left the classroom, the K-12 classroom, for a little bit, it's something to constantly remember that, like, although I have experiences and I have knowledge, I'm not currently in the classroom, so I need to make sure that the voices of what's currently happening in the classroom is being heard by me. Does anyone else have anything to say about or have any suggestions to curate these resources for all of us?
I think that a lot of times when things are implemented, what ends up I think when they're brought into the classroom, it is up to the classroom teacher to figure out, you said it was going to be used this way, but I know my students, so I know the population that I'm working with, so I have to use it this way. A lot of times I feel like a district wants you to implement something with fidelity. And implementing something with fidelity doesn't necessarily help the student. So we have to work with implementation with integrity, because we have to meet our students' needs. And if that means, instead of you writing out an essay by hand so that this can be turned in, that you have to type it, or you have to make a flip grid, or you have to do an oral presentation using YouTube, then those are the strategies that need to be implemented. We have to not allow ourselves to become, I don't want to say overwhelmed or burdened, because I personally believe the people want what the people want, but we have to allow ourselves the ability to understand that I'm in here doing this and this is the effect that I have. Because at the end of the day, our learners are the ones who are going to demonstrate what we did, whether we did it well or whether we did not do it well.
So Kenny, earlier, he was kind of breaking up, and he added in the chat, because he was having some internet difficulties, because technology is fun until the internet goes out, and then we all are like, we don't know what to do. And he was talking about HyperDocs with Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook, and how much he's really excited about implementing HyperDocs into his classroom. I've been using them with these students in my class as kind of a more innovative tool to allow that ownership, as I think Kenny was saying earlier, in the students' learning. And I wanted to jump over to the YouTube, and Marvia and Michelle and a couple others are having a great conversation on our YouTube chat about learning. They've learned so much more from Twitter and PLN beyond the just traditional PDs at their school and in their district and just in their region. And I want to give a shout out to Sarah Thomas, who's with us right now, because from her, connecting with her opened up my PLN big time. And I connected with her way before I had a physician. And I've actually been able to meet her face-to-face and do some face-to-face collabs, which is so awesome. And so we're going to move on to, I lost it within the chat, to our next question. Charles set us up very nicely for the next question in talking beyond the technology. And so our question 5 is, how does innovative technology support deeper learning?
I think innovative technology supports deeper learning because it gives students different ways of learning that they traditionally would not get. And all students learn differently, as we know, being teachers. They're all not going to learn the same way. So presenting them with the different innovative technologies allows for them to kind of own in on what they know and, represent themselves through that innovative technology. It allows for them to apply their higher level thinking and critical thinking skills to what they're learning, and allows them to also be engaged with what they're learning. Even though they might not be interested in something, innovative technology hopefully sparks an interest in what they're learning.
I think just to add to what Heather just said, a lot of the innovative technologies that we're seeing now are just inherently student-centered. And so that really supports and fosters what she was talking about with higher level thinking. And then also being able, I think maybe you were trying to say, or you were implying that because these technologies are more student-centered, that you can maybe do more differentiation with them or cater to different needs of different students in the classroom, which is something that I know that I need to always keep working on to give my students the best experience possible as they're trying to learn the material in our class.
So I wanted to jump in with Heather and Laura. Laura, yes, I agree. I think Heather was hitting on that differentiation. And I love that I kind of took it as her speaking on both the teacher and the student. You can see my pen, I've been taking notes. But so like the teachers have choice on what they can use based on their content and their needs, but then also students have choice. And Laura, I really like how you said like innovative tech is more student-centered. But I think when we go back to Kaylee's comment earlier on the purposeful, I think it depends on how you use it. A lot of the innovative tech that can be explored, and like that we've been exploring in this class that a lot of these panelists are in, can very easily not be student-centered. They can very much be teacher-centered. And so it's not just a shift in including innovative technology, but also in the implementation and design of that innovative technology. I'm going to open it back up.
Yeah, my comment was sort of with the idea in mind that these things are being used in an ideal and intended way, as we would intend them as we talk about them in our course.
Others?
Okay, I moved back to my office, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Can you hear me? Okay, all right. So another thing I like about just the innovative technology, and I touched on it when we were talking about like just opening up our professional learning environment. I really like the idea that some white kids out in middle America can like really like engage with different cultures, and they can see other people and like actual people, not characters they see on a TV show or a music video, but like really get to know people that are across the country, across the world. I think that's going to help with, you know, as they get older in business and things like that, when it's talking about problem solving, like that's a problem that we can start to address now with just cultural understanding and things like that, where kids are just being exposed to way more. I like the idea that, you know, this is like pen pals, like on steroids, like to be able to connect classrooms and be able to do a digital project with a kid on the other side of the world. Like that's huge. Like that'd have been awesome when I was in school. So I'm excited about like, if all this stuff gets used properly, I'm excited of the creative, like problem solving and the tolerance that is going to breed in these students.
All right, and I want to bring in some comments from the YouTube chat. Arvia Davidson answered this past question. It means sharing what you've learned, why it's important, how it's useful or even helpful. Tech and help get us our words, voices, ideas out there. Like Flipgrid, you can express thoughts verbally. I think one of the, along the lines of what Laura was saying in the design, I think one of the best things about in addition to student-centered with innovative tech is that going back to this idea of communication and collaboration, the technology, the advances in technology nowadays and what we can bring into our classrooms opens up our classrooms to bring in, like Doc Amy was saying, all our collaborative voices allows us to connect to others, and it's allowing us to connect our students to other students, which before was not really possible. Even like when Doc Amy said back in the AOL time with Insta chat or whatever it was called, I was in that time period too, that being brought into the classroom was unheard of. And so just these ideas that we can now connect with other classrooms is amazing and very easy. So we have one last question tonight, and I lost it. There it is. All right, so our last question for the evening is, what resources do you have regarding innovation in education? Feel like saying Bueller, Bueller. Anyone out there? So Kenny's muted and he's saying at Edgy Match.
I think that question's kind of broad. I think that's why we're kind of getting stuck. But, you know, I think just to kind of take that isolated question of getting kids to kind of think outside the box, like that is the biggest thing. Like we have a whole generation of kids that do not know how to connect math to science and being able to use technology to do just amazing things. And the other piece of like different learning, I'm a sociable introvert. So I like hanging out with people for like a half hour and then I need to leave. I need to recharge my batteries. I've never been one for forced group work. So I hate it when I'm in professional developments and they put you at a table and they say, hey, work with people you're never going to see the rest of the year. I shut down. Like I have learned that as an adult that I don't work well that way. So I prefer for them to say, hey, you have a project, ACD, it's open for a week. Y'all figure out how to do it. I can hop on a blog. I can do an email. We can chat back and forth. It gives me time to kind of process my thoughts. And as an adult, if that's how I learn and I've recognized that, I can now see patterns from when I was younger where I didn't want to do group work. I'll just do it myself and I'll let my partner like finish it up or kind of look it over. So being able to address different learning styles and really me being able to show my best by using technology and being able to collaborate kind of, I guess, on my own terms where I feel a little more comfortable, I think that's going to open up a whole lot more kids that normally would shy in the back, don't want to raise their hand, don't want to get in front of the class and give a speech. But if they can go home and record it and create something amazing, another visual presentation, does it really matter if they stood up in front of a class, read a paper, or would you really like to see them at their best because they were able to, that anxiety was able to kind of come down and they were really able to use technology and really show us what they know how to do? Like what's more important, them knowing the information or presenting it, you know, with a piece of paper or just old school? Like, we're in the future. Like we can do much better than just report in front of the classroom.
Awesome. I wanted to add a few more. Marvia Davidson on the YouTube chat, she answered this for question 3, but I thought going beyond just the resources, I was thinking strategies. Strategies do you have for innovation and education? And she said, start small. Don't try and take on the tech world. Start with one thing, one lesson, one idea that you can do and do it well. And I completely agree with that, with starting small, starting in your classroom, not trying to do a humongous thing. I tend to jump in feet first and do all the things, but I love this idea of starting small. I also want to give a shout out. I love personally George Couros. He is, I think his blog and his ideas, and I've seen him present a couple times live, are amazing. And he always rejuvenates me as an educator, and makes me like really consider things that I'm doing within my classes as well as just in my like education and life, and think like, am I real? What's the sole purpose behind this? And I wanted to give a shout out to him. Are there any other resources or strategies from our panelists for innovation?
I mean, just kind of going off like some of the different innovative technology pieces like Flipgrid and using Genius Hour and so on and so forth, I found that it's been really useful to follow those pages on Twitter, for example, and seeing how it's being used throughout the different grade levels. I know like with elementary school, it's kind of hard to determine what do you want your students' expectations to be for being able to use this innovative technology, especially so young, but kind of seeing like the broad range of how they're using it in high school and what they're using it for, it kind of gives you an idea, I guess, sort of like a resource to kind of progress how you want them to be able to use it with you.
I think, hello. Oh, well, I agree with you. And I also think that for me, innovation sort of centers around how can I change my practice in my classroom? Going from having to handwrite a lesson plan sort of makes me think about every step as I process through with my learners, so that I know what I would like to see them do. The innovation that I want to see tends to be very creative. I never thought when I started this program that I would have a PLN and that I would follow all of these people who have all these great ideas. And then I become overwhelmed and say, I want to do all of this, but I have to back up and start to say, this is where we are. How can I do this? And I think if I by my taking that process and being deliberate, I think it helps my students become more deliberate as I share with them what we're doing, rather than y'all go on Google Classroom. This is what we're doing. And nobody knows how to use Google, never thinking no one know you know how to use. You're the only one that knows how to use Google Classroom. So then that innovation goes out the door, because I have to go back and say, I have to teach you how to use this. I have to show model for you, just using that as the example. So I think one of the biggest resource that we have is one another and our PLNs. Because if it weren't, then I wouldn't be able to, I don't think I'd be able to get through this.
I definitely agree with what you were saying, Charles, in regards to having each other as resources. You know, when it comes to innovative technology, you know, for example, like learning about HyperDocs or Genius Hour, I really don't know much about that, or I didn't know much about that until recently. And it was because I had other people that I could, you know, go to who have used those innovative technologies in their classroom. And they have like the expertise on that, whereas I don't have much of it. So I don't want to, you know, go into my classroom and be like, okay, you know, here we're going to try what I'm doing. So just to have those other people to go to as resources definitely helps.
Awesome. I wanted to connect back to what Charles was saying with feeling overwhelmed and go back to our YouTube chat with Marvia Davidson saying, you know, starting with small steps. And she stated, I learned small chunks from me and Sarah and the other EduMatch family, makes it a bit easier. And I want to say it can be very overwhelming, especially when you're jumping in with 2 feet. And like my students soon will be exploring creation versus consumption. And I found that the past year, that sounds terrible, the past year, I've done a lot of consuming, and I'm hitting the point where I feel like I need to give back and start kind of writing through. Marvia had a great comment, the idea of write and process, forcing us to engage in deeper thinking and reflecting, pruning the PLN by choosing what is for the moment, and being deliberate in our choice of our PLN. And I think that's such a good suggestion when you're doing like like what Charles said with feeling overwhelmed, because it's so easy. Voxer, Sarah loves Voxer, but it tends to overwhelm me. And so choosing that. So I think all of you had great points, and I want to thank you so much for being on the panel. I'm going to kick it back over to Sarah to do some last minute comments.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was an amazing conversation. So big ups to the panelists, big ups to the moderator, Irene, big ups to everybody on YouTube Live, Twitter, everyone who's going to be watching in the future. So really, really appreciate all of you. So just wanted to give you a quick heads up. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., going to be chatting, very special episode with Lynn Colon at 6 p.m. Eastern once again. So same bat time, different bad day, but the same bad channel. So podcast with an s.edumatch.org/tweet talk. We're going to be talking about English learners and technology. So that's going to be a great episode. So definitely check that out. In addition, next Sunday, we are going to be back at 6 p.m. Eastern talking with Kat Barrett about taking a risk in a classroom. So definitely check that out as well. That's going to be a great conversation. So if anybody wants to be on panel, then please do so. Check out podcast with an s.edumatch.org/sign up to be on panel for that, or /tweet talk to watch it. Huge shout out to DigSit Kids. So this book was just released. So shout out to Dr. Mary Alice Curran and her son Curran D, who were the editors on it, as well as the multiple contributors from truly all over the world. Like this was an international effort. We had people from many, many continents. See, I was trying to come off the dome with it, but I can't remember. But I know that we had people in Africa, we had people in Asia, we had people in Europe. We had people in South America. Wait a minute, did we have the whole? We might have had the whole world covered. Well, not Antarctica, obviously, but we had people from so many different places just chiming in with their journey with digital citizenship. So it's all about having kids lead the conversation, not talking at them, but talking with them. So DigCit Kids, definitely check that out. And up for pre-orders is Stories of Edu Influence by Brent Coley. So he uses his 20+ year career to flesh out some of the stories that he has learned throughout the years. And he shares them with you in a nice little book. So that is books.edumatch.org/I'm gonna get this right. books.edumatch.org/eduinfluence. So that is the link for that one. So definitely come back, check us out. Everyone have a wonderful week. And thank you again to everyone for this fire conversation this week. So take it easy.